I have a very small confession for you. I'm a little bit of an idea guy. I like coming up with an idea and then patting myself on the back for how interesting and cool and exciting it is. And oh, that's an objectively good idea. Won't I be able to create such great stuff? I come up with such good ideas. What a good idea guy. But I'd like to transition from being an idea guy, and I think I'm working on this road. I'm working down this path. I'm making this happen. I'd like to transition from being an idea guy to being a design and execution guy. You come up with the idea and then you move through the design and then you make the whole thing. And I think the only way to make this transition is to start doing it. There's a huge difference between coming up with a cool idea and engaging with a project. And there is nothing more simultaneously frustrating and comforting than sitting in that zone of perfect idea. You want to create the thing, but also you're like, it's so perfect. And then as soon as you start designing, you have to lop off all of these chunks and parts and all of this stuff. And it turns from an idea into a design. And that is a corruption to some extent. There is this moment of purity when something is just an idea. And then when you start bringing it into the real world, it becomes less innocent. It takes on reality. It hits the road and it gets some bruises and it gets a little bit messed up. And you have to deal with the realities of design. It can't just live in this beautiful state of idyllic design and perfection and all of this stuff. You have to really start to craft it. And in that process, some injuries happen and it loses its innocence. Not to be down about it. I think it's the only way that we get to actually communicate the idea. I think it helps us clarify it. I think it helps us find what's important and worth focusing on, but it is a very real part of creating anything. What I really want to talk about today is how we look at the difference between an idea and a design and how we transition from idea to design. So first, let's talk about this in the context of a few specific game examples. It is so easy to fall in love with an idea. It is a lot harder to fall in love with a reality. A reality has flaws, blemishes, difficulties, stumbling blocks. It has things that you can firmly grasp and assess. You can look at reality and you can say, this is a problem that I cannot solve. I cannot figure out how to solve this. I cannot navigate my way around this. This is a problem that I have to deal with, right? Or this is a problem that I have to solve. This element of my game is deeply flawed. When it's an idea, it's ephemeral. It sort of surrounds you. It kind of touches every element of your life. You're walking around and you go, ooh, that kind of connects to that idea I have. Give yourself a pat on the back. What a cool idea. It's so relatable. It's kind of a soothing mist that encompasses your mind whenever you start thinking about it, but you can never grasp it. It's always floating around in like a beautiful, comforting kind of a way. And I love that about it. And I'm not saying that we should skip through the idea phase. I think the idea phase is a huge part of prepping for designing. You got to kind of fall in love with some concepts, right? And you got to go, okay, let's see what we can do with this. But falling in love with an idea, fully committing to an idea and thinking that it is a design is a little bit dangerous, I think. It can catch us. It can get us backed into a corner. I think a lot of people fall in love with the idea of making an MMO, making the great WoW killer. I'm going to make an MMO. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to make so much money. Maybe that's one angle. Another angle is, I love this game. What if this game, but it was an MMO? Or I love this MMO. What if this MMO, but it was in this genre that I like more? Some guy out there is probably going, what if World of Warcraft, but it's a shooter? And then somebody else is probably going, what if Warframe, but it's like World of Warcraft? There's probably somebody for every genre that's like, what if this, but this? And that's easy to fall in love with. Just go, oh, just a little bit different, just this a little bit different, that a little bit different. What if we just make these minor little changes and then it'll be the perfect game for me? That's very easy to fall in love with, especially if you're ignoring a lot of practicalities with technology and scope and art assets, and just the sheer size of an MMO is crazy. It's like servers. What about servers? What about multiplayer everything? It's wild. There's so much. Let's pitch a couple ideas and then look at the reality of a few games, because I want to look at the difference between an idea of a game, sort of the sales pitch for the game. I like to think of the idea for a game as the pitch that you would give to a potential customer or a, investor or whatever. That's not really an angle I think about much, but it's sort of the sales pitch of the game. Your friend says, "What are you working on?" And then you tell them the idea, versus the design of the game, which is everything involved in implementing that idea, which is so much more work. You can have an idea, this is the beautiful thing about it, and you can communicate it to other people, and they'll go, oh, it's going to be amazing. He has such good ideas. But everybody's talking about a different idea. You're telling them the idea, and they're seeing it the way they see it, and they're going, oh, wow, what a cool idea. But until you've gotten into design, you don't know if they actually like your idea. Everybody can agree upon something that seems so cool and so fun and so exciting. And then you can flesh out the design and go, no, I hate this. This is not how I want this game to feel. I was imagining this thing. Oh, well, I was imagining this. Oh, we're on two completely different pages. I thought we were talking about a completely different idea. No, we were both talking about a farming game. And you're like, yeah, but yours is in 3D. And you have to cut each crop individually. Mine is 2D. And you can harvest everything simultaneously with the click of one button. And mostly you're focused on selling the stuff that you farmed, right? Very different. Now let's talk about Celeste. I shouldn't have spoiled what game I'm talking about, actually. I should have just pitched the idea. But a platformer about climbing a mountain, all right? That's a nice idea. But what else is behind that? Okay, maybe we get more detailed. It's a platformer, and it is an emotional journey about climbing a mountain, and it is kind of an analogy, a analog. That's not the word. What is the word I'm looking for? It's fine. An allegory. There it is. An allegory for like combating anxiety and mental health difficulties. So you're climbing this mountain while working through your mental health difficulties as a character and connecting with other people. And it's kind of like a depth into your psyche. Now, some people are going to say, I don't like that idea, but then they're going to play Celeste and they're going to freaking love the game. Other people are going to say, I like that idea, and they're going to play Celeste and they're going to go, this is too difficult. I was imagining something cuter. Now, not many people are going to play Celeste and say they don't like the game, but it could happen. It's a good game. It's a very good game, but it's a bit difficult, and it's not for everybody because it's a bit of a speedrunner platformer kind of thing. You see what I'm getting at here, though? I just want to encourage everybody to notice and clarify the difference between an idea and a design. And it's not that we don't know this. It's just that it's so sneaky, It can creep into your head so easily. It can say, oh, you've designed this beautiful game in your head. You know every detail of it. You can see it. You can visualize it. You can taste it. And then the moment that you start trying to design the UI that the player has to interact with, you're like, how in the world did I ever think this game is going to work? This UI ruins everything. I need a better way for the player to interface with everything. How is the player going to understand which way they can move? How are they going to know that this wall is passable? Like, how are they going to know that they can go through this door, walk over this little barrier, jump over this, interact with this, break open this wall and pass through? How are they going to know these things? Does my art style even permit that? There are so many tiny details that matter so much. And it's very easy to fool ourselves. Now, inevitably, You cannot design the entire game from the beginning. You will be designing as you are making the game to some extent, right? There's just realities that you bump up against into. Bump up against into. Holy cow. Bump into. There are just things that you have to deal with. And you're not going to predict them all. And that's fine. And that's part of the journey and the beauty of making any kind of artistic thing, creating anything, is discovering what it is as you make it. It comes into its own form. And that's a part of the design too. If I were to pitch just one more game, I just want to really lean into this example a little bit. Let's just pitch another game without spoiling what it is. You are a bug and you are fighting underground against other bugs in order to save a nest that all these bugs have been living in. What does that game look like? Are you an ant? Is it realistic? Let's say that you're a cute bug now. Let's clarify a little more. You've got this cute little mask on. You got like a little white mask with some horns. You got a little cape. You got a little sword or like a little nail, maybe. And you're going around and you're fighting other bugs, and maybe there's like a plague thing and all this stuff. Okay, we're getting clearer what game I'm talking about now. But still, what is the gameplay? Do we even know what kind of game this is yet? Is this a platformer? Could this be an RPG? Could this even be like a strategy game? You could take that idea and you could make it almost anything. So let's say we pick a genre. We say that it is a platformer. We say that in fact, we go to a Metroidvania. You may now realize that we're talking about Hollow Knight. You make it into a Metroidvania, and then it's all about the little elements of this game. Actually, not even the little ones. There's a lot of big picture stuff going on here, isn't there? How big are you? How is the combat? Is this game combat centered, really? Or is there a lot of like navigation? What is it more focused on? Exploration, combat, navigation? Are you unlocking things? Is there currency at all? How do you get currency? How do you interact with the currency? What can it be used for? Can you lose it permanently? How do you save? Where are the save locations in this game? Now, Hollow Knight has answered all of these questions, but when you are making your own game, you have to answer these questions and you have to know to ask them. And the idea does not yet know what the questions are or the answers. When it's just an idea, you don't know what questions you're asking. So I would say one of the biggest differences between an idea and an actual game that has been developed, an idea and a design for a game, is the questions have been asked and answered. And oftentimes when it's just an idea, the question is there with 100 answers, or the question isn't even there because you haven't answered the previous questions. Once you start answering questions, you can get to deeper questions, right? With each question that you answer, you get 5 more questions. It becomes a hydra until you eventually figure out what the heck this game is supposed to be, and you have to give up so many different options. When you come up with an idea for a game, it feels like you're answering a question, right? You're answering the question of, what do I want to make? What is this game that I'm going to make? But you're not actually answering a question. You are asking a question. The moment that you decide this is what my game is going to be, you have just asked yourself hundreds, if not thousands, of additional questions. If you are genuinely going to work on this project, you have asked yourself so many things by saying what the game is going to be. And this is where design comes into play. An idea is a question. A design is an answer. And you have to practice the skill of answering your questions. This is why it's so important to make a small project, because there's less questions. and it's okay, and you can answer it, and you can figure it out. But if you ask a huge question, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And it doesn't look like a huge question. It looks like a simple answer. What am I going to make? Oh, I'm just going to make a great MMO. I'm just going to make a World of Warcraft, but like this instead. And you go, oh, all the answers are already there. You know, I already have all the answers. No, you don't. It's not, no, you don't. Everything is interconnected. You change one thing in World of Warcraft, the entire game changes dramatically. Just look at the complaints anytime there's a patch note, you know? Anytime somebody changes the slightest thing in a video game, everything changes. You are not you're not getting an answer when you state an idea. It's just not the case. You are getting an answer to what am I excited about making? And that's a beautiful answer. That's a beautiful question to answer, I should say. What am I excited about making? I'm excited about making this 2D platformer. Okay. Does your 2D platformer involve any kind of combat? Can you fall off of ledges? Can you die? Can you double jump? Can you stick to things? Can you dash? Are there unlockables? Are there things that you explore? Is there a high score? When you die, does it reset to the beginning of the game, or do you have some kind of a checkpoint? Is there any indie game content? I guess we don't need to worry about that yet. We're very early on in the process after all. What kind of an art aesthetic are we going for? These are all things that you're asking, and these are not even the really specific questions. How does the gravity feel? How high can you jump? Does your character float a little bit, or do they kind of just drop like a stone the moment they hit the top of their jump? What does the arc of their jump look like? How is that parabola? If they hit an enemy on the top of their head, does the character die or does the enemy die? And also, do enemies have different weak points? Are there even enemies? Can you shoot projectiles? Are there power-ups? What is the aim of this game? Also, what's the plot, the story? There's a million questions, and this is just for a 2D platformer. Ask the questions. That's the other thing. And make it exciting for you, but simple enough that you can handle. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? If you make it exciting for you, but simple enough that you can handle, then you're going to have a good time. And maybe the answers to these questions are, I don't know yet, and I don't really care. Maybe you're making a platformer and you're going, how does the jump feel? I have no idea. This is overwhelming. Maybe I just gave you that giant list, which was intentionally a little bit overwhelming, and you looked at that and you went, oh my God, I'll never make a game. No. You don't have to write down the answers to those questions. These will naturally come up as you're making the game. If this is your first project, just start making something simple that you feel like you kind of have an idea for. And then as you're doing it, you will run into the question, you will answer it. You'll run into the question, you'll answer it. And you can just work through that and practice the design, discover what questions matter to you, and start working through those. And there may be questions. This is the real brain blast moment that can happen sometimes. There may be questions you don't think of. And then you see somebody else's game, or you talk with your game about somebody who's just like a buddy, and they say, what about this? And you go, oh my God, I never thought of that. That's crazy, because you have this fundamental assumption, and you go, oh, 2 + 2 is always 4. And then this person goes, wait, buddy, this isn't math. What if your character is just upside down for that part of the game? And you go, oh my God, why can't my character just be upside down? That's brilliant. This is why some games blow our minds when they have like Braid had this thing where it controls time with like the way you move left and right. It's been a really long time since I've played that puzzle game, but Braid was a puzzle platformer that just made you go, oh, what the? I never thought of that before. I've never thought to question that game mechanic. So if you want to get really crazy with it, you can have stuff where you go, oh wait, what if we take this fundamental design rule and just play around with it a little bit? What are the consequences of that? And I think the more you get to know design questions in general, the more you're able to recognize the consequences of things like that. Not to say that a fun way to recognize those consequences isn't just to break it and see what happens. Just go, I'm just going to make this whole thing be upside down, or I'm going to make a platformer except you're on the edge of the screen and you're jumping up on these things that are like, I don't know. There's a million different angles to break everything. But maybe you want to break everything to help you learn. Have at. The point I'm getting at, and just to restate this, I mean, not to reiterate my point ad nauseum and just like infuriate you with this, but just one more time. You're not answering questions with ideas. You're asking them. And that is huge. And that is essential. And that is how we become good at game design. And it's okay to not answer all the questions right up front. It's overwhelming. But you do have to recognize that these are questions, and a lot of them you are going to have to answer. And you can do that while you're doing the work. You can do some of it up front. Whatever workflow works for you. There's no hard rule, right? I mean, definitely not. If there is a hard rule, I'm not the guy to listen to. I've made one game on Steam. I'm not like some dude who you should be listening to on a high credibility professional level. I haven't had any like huge hit games, but I do think about this a lot. And I think that it's important to notice these sorts of things. Notice what questions you are asking, and notice what questions the game is asking you, and the genre and your assumptions about the genre and all of that stuff. Maybe the most important question is just, is this going to be fun? Does this seem fun? Because maybe you look at the game and you go, I have no idea what makes this fun, but it seems fun. And then you have somebody else play it and they're like, yeah, that seems fun. I don't know why, but I like it. Great. Lean in. Have a good time. Enjoy. Right? I think that's what I've got to say for this chunk of the podcast. I've kind of gone on a rant, and I hope that it was enjoyable, and I hope that I was not an overwhelming amount of passion about this, but I got really excited about this particular one because I've been working with some exciting project stuff today. I was helping people refine some ideas earlier today, and it got me really hyped on game design and specifically translating ideas into actionable designs, which is so fun and invigorating and scary because you gotta let go of some of the things that you're imagining the game will do for you, because in order for it to solidify, you have to condense that mist that is floating around. You have to take that idea mist, put it into a compactor, and turn it into some kind of form that you can work with and mold and shape and so on and so on. I have two questions for you. The first one might be a little difficult to answer. The first one is, what is your smallest creative idea right now? Now, I would encourage you to answer this question from the angle of creative stuff that is spinning off of something you already have going on, right? So in order to keep it a very small idea, it's not like a whole brand new project with like, oh, what if I did this little alteration to this thing I've already done, right? Maybe you're working on a sewing project, just to do a completely out of left field example. What if you're working on a sewing project and you go, what would happen if I added a pocket to this? Where would I be able to put a pocket? How could I fit a pocket onto this? I don't know. How would that change the design? Would the pocket create a lump? Whatever. It's asking a bunch of questions, but it's not asking so many questions that it's like so overwhelming, It's not ruining you with questions. I don't have my own answer to this because I've done so much design stuff this weekend that I think I can't find an answer to this moment. I've just worked my design brain out. It's tired. I did some stream updatey stuff that I was working on and like audio things, and that was kind of a little bit of a lot. And then I was working with coming up with a game design or helping refine a game design today. So I don't know what creative idea I have right now that's really small. Maybe just some like room reorganization. Honestly, I think there are probably ways that I could reorganize this room to make it more exciting to work with. but I don't even want to try to flesh out that idea right now. Right now, I just want to let my creative mind rest, my design mind rest a little bit. So here's the next question for you. What core design assumptions do you have about some genre? So I have some core design assumptions about a lot of genres. And after playing games for way too long, that's a hard thing to rid yourself of because sometimes you don't even notice them, right? The ones that are really dangerous are the ones that I don't even know I have. But I kind of have the assumption that MMOs have a built-in incentive to keep players playing as long as they can. I think there are some games that go against that don't have a subscription built in, or that design against that even though they have a subscription built in, like somehow manage to combat that incentive. Like supposedly Final Fantasy 14 is kind of good about that. Guild Wars 2 is supposed to be good about it, but they got a whole microtransaction thing too. They're not horrific with it, but I don't love it. You know, I know a lot of people really like it, but I think their microtransactions are a little too aggressive. Sorry Guild Wars 2 fans. I like the game, but I think they have overpriced microtransactions because I don't like microtransactions anyway. So that's a core design assumption, basically that the monetization of MMOs will frustrate me, but maybe that's more about me than it is about the genre. Core assumption about platformers. I mean, there are things that are just as simple as platformers go from left to right? Like that's just kind of built in, or right to left, but like top to bottom is very different. There's a lot of assumptions built in around RPGs and skill grinding. Every time I imagine an RPG, I imagine it a certain way. And maybe the assumptions are my own preferences too. Like maybe to some extent, this is a design preference rather than an assumption. And I wonder how valuable it is to dig in and explore that idea. But maybe we save that for another day, because I think that's the end of this episode. I think I'm going to let you guys go so you can get out there and start making stuff. Here's the quick pitch for my stuff. I'll keep it really short. I've got Anxious Buddha Games on Twitch. Check it out. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. 3 hours of game dev, 2 hours of gaming. We've started playing Just Shapes and Beats on Wednesday, so that's exciting. Who knows when you'll hear this, though? Maybe we're playing something else entirely. Maybe we're not even streaming anymore. Who knows? That's the pitch, actually. That's the whole thing. We've got a Discord, too. So there you go. You can join the Discord, hang out with the community, all that stuff. If you want to email me, anxiousbuddhagames@gmail.com. That is actually everything. Now, get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. I will see you all in the next one. Have a good week. Bye-bye.